Hey everyone, I'm Sarah and today we are doing crochet. So today is actually hello Crixano, welcome. Today is a special request stream. Crixano made an excellent suggestion last week, which was to do a granny square. And granny squares are awesome because they are kind of the foundation for a lot of things. So you make a square, you make another square, you can piece them together, you can make blankets, you can make trivets, you can make hats, you can make sweaters, all kinds of things with the granny square as the base. So we're going to learn a very simple granny square. We're going to actually go by a pattern, and we haven't done a pattern since I think the second crochet lesson. So this will be good to look at a pattern again and follow that. This is actually a very simple granny square. I'm not going to do any changing colors today. We are going to be learning changing colors next week. So I don't want to jump into that too soon, but I will tell you where we would change colors if we were to do that. All right. So what we're going to be using today is size 4 or medium weight, worsted weight yarn. And this is just like your basic yarn that you get, from whatever craft store, Walmart, whatever. We need a size H, which is a 5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and your wonderful self. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up the pattern. Okay. So first of all, I want to go ahead and thank Stacy from the website. I contacted her to make sure it was okay for me to use this pattern on a live stream, and she said yes, very wonderfully. So I want to recommend checking out her website. She also does tutorials, so verypink.com. She does tutorials. She's got all kinds of cool patterns. As far as I know, most of her patterns are free for personal use, not for dispersing, and I don't know if you can. You'd have to read her copyright information, but I'm not sure if you could use her patterns to sell. But you can always alter patterns, and I'll go over that maybe next week. Maybe that's something I'll cover when we're talking about changing color. I'll talk about how to alter patterns. Okay, so this says granny square blanket. We are not actually going to be doing a blanket today. We're just going to do one of the squares. And let me come back real quick. I just want to show you. Well, first, let's scroll down. So here's the picture of it. Now, this says that you can use, that you can make your squares any size, and a block of 6 rounds is approximately a 6-inch square. All right, I'm going to come back because I want to show you something. So this right here, I made this earlier, and I measured it, and it's 7 inches. So what it looks like is if I were with, and this is why it's good to do a test. So I could either make my blanket 7 inches, and I could do 7 by 7. So that would be 49 by 49 for a blanket. So that's possible. The other option is I could do one less if I went down one row. So I'm going to bring it in on the side here and over here. That's just a little under 6 inches. So I could do only 5 instead of 6. So that just shows that my tension is a little bit loose. And actually, that's pretty great. I didn't realize that my tension was loose, so that means I'm pretty relaxed today. So that's kind of a good sign. But I just wanted to show you how your gauge, that's why it's important to do a test one first. And you can measure at each point, so you could decide, okay, I want to start tightening it up a little bit or whatever. So you can measure at each point. But so for me, mine is 7 inches. So that would give me an idea that instead of doing, 6 by 6, I might want to do, let's see, a standard blanket is 36 by 36. So I might want to do 5 by 5. So then I have a 35-inch blanket, square. Something like that. Okay. So let's go back to the pattern. All right. So I'm going to go back and forth a little bit between the pattern and the picture just because I want to be able to show you some things. So first and foremost, what we're going to do is it says that we are using a size H crochet hook. That's what I told you. This says 3 colors of worsted weight, but we're only going to use 1 today. A tapestry needle for weaving in the ends, you don't need that. You can use either a smaller crochet needle, or I just use the same crochet hook, or I use the same size crochet hook. But anyway, I will show you how to weave in the ends with just a crochet hook. And then this gives you your gauge. So 4 double crochet stitches per inch. All right, now, but this was also a gauge too, where 6 rounds is about 6 inches. Okay, so she gives baby blankets sizes. Actually, a typical baby blanket would be about 36 inches, so maybe between 36 and 42. So either way, if it was 42, that's fine. Then you would just do 6 by 6 squares. If you were doing 7 inches like me, that would work out perfectly. Let's see. Now, she lists the yardage for what you will need. So basically how much yarn you will need. I wouldn't worry too much about this right now for just 1 square. Where this becomes important is when you're making something bigger out of this. Okay. Another thing I could do too, if I wanted to bring my gauge down, is I'm going to come back to my screen. If I wanted to bring my gauge down, I could go with a smaller hook. I could go with like a 4.5 or a 4, and that would tighten this in a little bit and possibly get it to 6 inches. So that's another option too, if you make one and you're like, It didn't take me this long. I want to say this took me about 30 minutes to make. It really didn't take very long. So it's not a problem to make one, and if it's not how you like it, undo it. What I want to show you is this is actually the same pattern over and over again. We start with our circle in the middle, and from there we basically are going to do 3 double crochet stitches, chain 1, and then it turns. We chain 1 again, so there's actually going to be 2 chains in between, like in our corners, because this side needs to have a chain 1 and this side needs to have a chain 1 on either side. Hopefully that makes sense. So like we have 3 double crochets and a chain 1 on either side. 3 double crochets and a chain 1 on either side. So so it's 3 double crochets, chain 1, chain another 1, then do 3 double crochets, chain 1, chain another 1, 3 double crochets, chain 1, chain another 1, and that's it. Then when we get to the second row, we have that chain 1 space. And so I'm going to show you this as we go through it. But in that chain 1 space, we'll just do another 3 double crochets with a chain 1 on each side. That is it. It is literally 3 double crochets with a chain 1 on each side all the way around. That's it. So, pretty easy. Let's go ahead and look at the pattern so I can show you. Now, the way she writes her patterns is a little different than I write mine. But she starts with a chain 4, and she's more descriptive than I am. So I would just say chain 4, slip stitch into the first chain, and that's it. Then you're going to actually crochet into the circle that's created from that from the chain that you just made. Like it's a little circle. So I would make this a lot shorter if it were me, but it still makes sense. She says stab your hook into the top leg of the first chain. So all she's saying is go into that very first chain and slip stitch, creating a circle. All right. So this gives the instructions. I'm going to go over this, and then we're going to actually, I'm going to come back to me, and I'm going to show you how to do it watching me. So first, you're going to be going directly into that circle. Now, remember how I told you it was chain 3 with 2, sorry, not chain 3, 3 double crochets with a single chain on each side. That's what this is. So this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So this is technically 3 because you've got 2 double crochets plus 1 chain 3. So that's 3. You chain 2 because this is a corner. So you chain 1 and then you chain 1 for this other side, which is 3 double crochets. Then it says to do this 3 times. That's because you have 4 corners. So when it says 3 times, you're only doing the part that's in between these asterisks. Some people use asterisks, some people use parentheses, but basically it will let you know somewhere that this is where you start, this is where you stop, and you do it this many times. Okay, this is basically it all the way around. Now I just want to show you something that it does when you get to the end of round 2. That's where you would add a second color. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Or, well, I'll just tell you where that is. We will do color changes next week. Likewise, at the end of round 4 is where you would change to your next color. So basically every 2 rounds is where you would change color. Now, I think that's it. She talks about seaming here, and that's where you put your squares together. I will show you that at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to put this to the side, and I'm going to show you really quick a really cool trick. Once we get going, I'm going to show you a cool trick for knowing which round you're on, because sometimes it's easy to lose count. But I'll show you a quick trick for that. But we got to get a couple rounds in first before we do that. All right, so let's make our slip stitch. Our slip knot, sorry. I'm having trouble with my words today. Now, Crixano, are you going to be doing the, are you doing this with me today? Are you going to actually be following? Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Then I'll make sure that I go slow in parts to let you catch up. All right, so we've got our slip knot on there, our first loop. We're going to just chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just chain 4. Then we're going to go back into that very first loop, the top of the chain. That's what she called that. We're going to pull our yarn through and then pull it through the other hole. That's called a slip stitch. And what that does is that creates this nice hole there, that nice circle. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. This counts as our first double crochet. So remember how I said we're going to be doing groups of 3? So now for this first set, we only need to do 2 double crochets because we already have our first one here. So double crochet, remember you yarn over so that you have 2 on the hook. Go right into the middle of that hole. Notice that I'm pulling my tail over to the left a little bit because that's going to start to get pulled under the double crochet as we go around. So go ahead and do your first double crochet. So pull through the first 2, pull through the second 2. We'll do another double crochet, go through that hole, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. Now I've got 3 on here. 1, 2, 3. So remember, I'm going to chain 1 at the end of that 3. Now this happens to be a corner, so when I turn it, I need to chain one again because I'm on the corner. So chain one, 3 double crochets. So we're going to go first double crochet, second double crochet. My yarn's a little wonky, so I might have some issues. Third double crochet. And then chain one. All right, we're turning. So we chain one again because we're on a new side. So chain one. First double crochet. This is really wonky yarn. Second double crochet. Third double crochet. Chain one. So now we have 3 sides. 1, 2, 3. Turn again. Chain one. First double crochet. All the while this tail is getting trapped in here. Second double crochet. And this is how you carry colors. Like if I wanted to carry a new color under here, you just let it kind of go underneath and you won't even see it. Third double crochet. Chain one. Now, when we turn, we've got our first set of 3 here. We didn't chain one at the beginning of that, so we need to go ahead and chain one there so that we can connect them. So that there's a chain one at the beginning and at the end of that set of 3. So then you count 1, 2, 3 up from the bottom and slip stitch. Slip stitch means to pull through both without doing a crochet. And there you go. There's our first part. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. You don't have to weave in the ends because you trapped it. So there we go. The beginning of our granny square. Look at that cool pattern. Now, here's the trick for knowing what round you're on. You are on whatever round is if you count the holes on a side. So there are 2 holes on this side, so we are going to be on round 2. 2 holes. Next time there's going to be 3 holes, and so then you'll know that you're on round 3. Now there's a little thing that we need to do to get to this very first hole here. So remember we've got our 3 double crochets. We need to slip stitch through those. So what a slip stitch does is it doesn't add any height. So we're going to go through our first, almost like we're doing a single crochet, except for we just pull it all the way through both of our loops. So we'll go in the second one, pull it through again. Then our last slip stitch, we do 3 slip stitches. We're going to do directly in this hole that we created here. So you pull it through again. That's it. No crochet stitch. All right. Now we're going to start again. So we go 1, 2, 3. That's our first double crochet. Then we're going to do 2 more in that hole. 1, 2. This is a corner, so we're going to do 1, turn, because this is on this end corner, and then do another one to start our next side. 1, 2, all in that same hole, 3. So now here's our first 3, and then chain 1. Always chain 1 at the end of your 3. So here's our first corner. We've got 3 on this side with chain 1 and 3 on this side with a chain 1. And then we did another chain 1 on this other side. Again, if it's easier for you to think of this as your corners as chain 2, like where you do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 1. If that's easier, go ahead and think of it that way. I just like thinking of it as chain 1 because in that way I always have a chain 1 on either side of my 3 double crochets. All right, so I chained 1. Now I'm going to skip all this nonsense here. The chain 1 is going to help me with that. I'm going to go right into that next hole. So I've got 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets. I'm on a corner, so I chain 1, turn, chain 1 again, back in that same hole, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 3 double crochets, chain 1. Always chain 1 at the end of your 3 double crochets. I'm going to take a break at the end of, like a little mini break at the end of this round to see how everybody's doing. So you can skip all this mess and go right into that corner. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. Turn, chain 1 again, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, and I'm going to skip all this and go into that corner. Do 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, turn, chain 1 again. Last set of 3, we go 1, 2, 3. Always remember to give yourself some slack so you don't get too tight. Chain 1. And because we're not on a corner, we don't have to chain 1 again. We only chain that 1, and we're going to connect these. All right, so we're going to count up from that first chain of 3 that we did. 1, 2, 3. In the third chain, that's where we're going to do a slip stitch. You pull through one, pull through the other. Okay, now this is where we would change colors if we were going to. We're not going to, but this is where we would. If we were going to, we'd cut this off and just pull it through the hole and so that it would knot it there and then start our new color. But we're not going to do that today. So we had a chain at the beginning, which counted as our first double crochet. We had 2 double crochets, so that's our first group of 3. We chained 1. Then we turned it, chained 1, so that we had, on this corner, we had our first chain, 3 double crochets, chain 1. Then on this corner, we chained one. Oh no, we didn't have to chain one because we were just connecting. So we did our 3 double crochets, chained one, turned, chained one, 3 double crochets. So essentially what you're doing, again, if it's easier for you to think this way, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 1. 3 double crochets, chain 2 on the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 1 in the middle. If it's easy to remember that way better, then do that instead. That's technically how she writes it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the second round. Now, or the third round rather. How do we know we're on the third round? Look at a side. 1, 2, 3 holes. So we're on round 3. Okay, now remember we have to slip stitch to get over to this hole. So we're going to slip stitch into this first one, the first crochet. Slip stitch into the second one. Slip stitch into the hole. Oops, I lost it. Okay, so we're at the hole, that first corner. We're going to chain 3. Oops. Hold on. I'm getting all caught up in myself. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3. That's our very first one. Then we're going to do 2 more double crochets to make our first group of 3. So 2 more. Now we're on a corner. Ooh, I am just really having trouble with this yarn today. Well, I was having trouble with it before. I just need to get some better yarn. Imagine that the cheap yarn is acting cheap. That's not always the case though. Sometimes you can buy cheap yarn and it does all right. I think I just got one that was from a bad batch, and you can look at the lot numbers. Usually it's wherever the color is. So this is Minty Mint, or just Minty. I think that's a different language. Oh, it doesn't say the lot number. It might be what this M number is here. But either way, usually the lot number is like where the color is, which is usually near the barcode. All right, so I've got my first 3. So I'm going to chain 1, turn, chain another one, or you can think of it as chain 2. In that same corner, we're going to do 3 more double crochets. So 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. Now, here's where we do something a little different. It's actually still the same. I mean, we're still doing the same pattern. We chain 1, we do 3 double crochets, chain 1 again. So it's still the same thing, but this time we've got this extra hole in the middle. So we're going to go into, this is our chain 1 that we did in the middle. So we're going to go into the hole and do 3. 1, 2, 3. Oops. Chain 1. All right. Then we're going to go into our corner. It's our next one. So 1, 2. Oops. 3. Chain 1, turn, chain 1 again, and then we're going to do another 3, another group of 3. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. Always chain 1 at the end. How's it going, Crixano? I'm going to break for just a second to ask you how everything's going and if you're all caught up. Or if you have any questions or are having trouble with anything. It's going good. Awesome. I like to hear that. All right, well then let's keep going. So we're going to go into this middle one. So do 3 crochets, double crochets rather. And then chain 1. Then go into the corner. Do 3 double crochets and chain 1. Turn, chain 1, do 3 double crochets, chain 1. We're going to go into the middle. 3 double crochets. And chain 1. Last corner. So we go into the last corner and do 3 double crochets. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this pattern. You see how it's just the exact same thing all the way around. So I've got my 3 double crochets, I chain 1, I turn it, I chain 1 again, chain 1 at the end. Now, I've got one more middle piece to go. So I'm going to do my 3 double crochets. Chain 1. And then I'm going to join these together. So I count 1, 2, 3. And in the top one, that third one, I slip stitch. So there we go. Now how do we know what round we're on? Turn it to a side and you go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are on round 4. All right, so if you don't have any questions, let's crochet for a bit. I don't have any music or anything. I need to get some of that classical music, Crixana, that you play. That stuff is pretty good. So don't forget, we're slip stitching to the hole. So we slip stitch 3 times. 1, 2, and then in through the hole. Then chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we go ahead, do 2 more double crochets to finish that grouping of 3. Chain 1 and turn, and you just keep going. So chain 1 again. It's just so I don't get lost. I usually stop at the end of every time I do one and just count 1, 2, 3, make sure that I've got the right amount before I move on to the next hole. Always a good policy, so that way you don't have to backtrack. Don't forget your chain 1 at the end of every round of 3. I think I forgot my chain 1 here. No, I didn't. I see it. I was thinking, man, how did I forget that chain 1 right after I just told everybody? No, I think I did forget my chain 1. Yep, I sure did. Well, good thing I caught it now instead of later. Chain 1. It's better just to get in the habit of every time you end 3, just automatically chain 1. That helps. So I count. Yep, I got 3. Move on to the next one. This is so meditative, it's putting me to sleep. It's funny, earlier I was thinking of my corners as chain 1 and then turn and then chain 1 again. Now I'm thinking of it as chain 2. So just goes to show you that sometimes you can change it up even during the middle of your crochet. Don't forget to give yourself slack. Now sometimes people can talk, they can chat while they're doing this. Some people need to be able to concentrate because you're counting. Like once you get where you're pretty good, you don't always need to count. Like you kind of already have a sense of a pattern. So I'm to the end, so I chained 1 and 1, 2, 3. I'm going to connect. So this is where I would change colors, again, if I were doing different colors. I'm at the end of round 4 and about to start round 5 because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. I'm going to slip stitch over to the first hole. That means I have to do 2 slip stitches and then a third one in the actual hole itself. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then go ahead and start your pattern. 2 for the first one because that one already counts. I don't know what I did. I got excited and only did 1 double crochet and I needed to do 2 more. Now, of course, it progressively gets longer, obviously, because you are adding to your the number of holes in your center. It would help if I didn't keep slipping with my yarn. That is no bueno. All right, now, when we get to the end of round 5, I want us to measure, because if you guys are at 6 inches, then we'll stop. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and go one more round. I can actually undo my other one to the 6-inch place. All right, I'm on my last side. Well, my last side if we're going to stop at 5, which I feel like we maybe should. We'll see how your gauge goes. But I don't believe for a second that I am that loose. Even on my most relaxed day, I usually am not too much looser than the pattern. So I feel like maybe this pattern is a little off in the actual size, the gauge, or she is very tight with her stitches, which is possible. If she's a little tight and I'm a little loose, that ends up being quite a big amount of difference. Don't forget, when you do get to the very end, don't forget that last chain 1. It's before you connect. All right, I'm going to stop here. Oops. How are you coming along, Crixano? Are you close to finished, or am I moving really fast? Oh yeah, this is right at 6. So I'm going to go ahead and stop. I'm going to Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually take one. Come on now. I'm going to take one row out. All right. So yeah, go ahead and stop when you get to the end of round 5. All right. We will just get rid of that so it's not in the way. I'm going to get a slightly smaller hook to weave in my ends. You can do it with the same size. In fact, I did it the last time, but it's just a lot easier with the smaller hook. Now, one thing you can do is you can go, let's see, so this is going to come from this way, so this will go from this way, this way, this way. You can just weave this in. And then when you pull it through, you can pull through everything. I'm going to do this again, so don't worry if I'm going too fast on this one. Okay. It's being a pain. All right. So when you're done, let me know. So these should be about the same size, and they are. So once you make that slip stitch at the end, you can go ahead and cut off whatever, a small amount, little tail. And then you're just going to pull it right through that hole. So that's the knot. Now, just let me know when you're done. Okay, cool. All right, so get a smaller hook if you can. And what we're going to do is we're going to weave it the end in and out. Oh, and of course I'm having trouble on my very first. All right, so I put this through one of the holes next to it, and I'm going to pull that on through. So I'm just going to weave it in and out about 4 times. So this is my 3rd time. And last. Then I'm going to just kind of pull it a little bit so that it's got some movement in there. And I'm going to go back the other way. So I'm going to pull it back through. Oops. And what that does is it creates a tension so that it won't pull out. All right, and then you can just cut that off. All right, now there's a couple different ways you can join. There is a right side and a wrong side, although I couldn't tell you which one is which right now. But, so I wouldn't worry too much about that because they look pretty much the same to me. I'm trying to see if I can tell. Okay. What you can do is look at the center. So the center here puckers, whereas on this other side, it's more integrated. You can see like it kind of blends a little bit better. So it's puckered on this side. See? So one of these is right, one of these is wrong. So what we're going to do is, this is the integrated side, this is the puckered side. We're going to put those, wait a minute. Oh, we put the two integrated sides down next to each other. So your two outsides should be the puckered side. Yeah, there we go. So we're putting the wrong side up here and the right side up here. All right, so get your yarn. So there's a couple ways you could do it. You could do a ladder stitch, which is to go in here and just loop around the holes. However, the way she wants you to do it is we're going to just, we'll get our original size. You're just gonna loop around the hook. So yarn over. And she says to go into the outside leg of each square. So the outside leg would be this hole right here. So what we're going to do is we're going through that hole. We're going to pull yarn through. And then we're going to go into the next leg. Let's see. So I just like to work in my, directly in my double crochet. But you slip stitch. So I'm not going to do like a crochet. I'm just going to slip stitch into that. Now, you want to carry your tail across so it hides it. Or the other option is that you actually put your tail in your crochet, and that will make it even a little sturdier. So you go into your next two, pull through, and slip on through. You go to your next two, pull through, and slip on through. You don't have to carry this for very long, just a little while. All right, when you get to a hole, you're just going to go through the middle of the hole. Oops, I almost did a crochet. Just slip right through. All right, now I'm going to let the rest of that tail go. There's not much of it left anyway. You go through the next set of double crochets, slip stitch. Hopefully this is making sense. Go through the double crochets, slip stitch. Third double crochet, slip stitch. Then you go through the hole. Okay? Then you go through the next thing of double crochets, slip, keep going, slip, keep going. Now we're at the next hole. And you just slip right through that hole. Now, her recommendation, if you were going to make a blanket, now you're probably not doing this because you probably only made one of these so far, whereas I made one earlier. So just let me get to the end here and then we'll talk about this. So I'm just going through each of the double crochets in the hole and just pulling them all together. I'm going to go through this last corner. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it off and end it. And then I'll weave this through. So it doesn't matter which side you weave it through. Oops, but I am coming from the wrong way. Now she recommends that you make a vertical column first and then attach your vertical column the way we just did. And the thing is that because these are square, you should have your double crochets lined up no matter what corner you're doing it from. All right, I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to pull back through. Okay, and I'm going to come back this way. I'm going to trim it. And dun 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 dun. Look at that. So you're going to have a place in the blanket where the squares match up. And that's okay, because the thing is that normally this was made to change color. So you'd have your block of color that goes around. So it would make it look rather seamless. That's it. Ta-da! So, Crixano, what did you think about that granny square? Did you find that to be pretty easy or kind of difficult? Or you finished about the same time as me, so I'm thinking maybe you didn't find it too difficult. I would definitely like to see a picture. And for anybody else who's following, if you want to upload pictures of your work, you can here at my ArtShare server. There's also a button down below called Discord, and if you click on that, that will also take you to the server. Awesome. I'm glad you thought it wasn't very hard. I thought this was a really good pattern. Now, there are more complicated granny squares. This is by far one of the easier granny squares. Granny square is just the idea of it being a square. And you know what? Sometimes they're not even square. You can have a granny square that is hexagonal. Technically, if you connect them, mandalas are technically granny squares, because the idea of a granny square is that it's a modular piece. You make several smaller pieces and combine them together. That's the idea behind the granny square. So the granny square is more of an idea than it is an actual square. Oh, so you don't have a camera. Well, that's okay. When you are able to just upload that picture, and anybody else who's following, please feel free to upload pictures, and everybody will ooh and ah over your work, because it's amazing, because you're amazing. So that is it for today. Next week we will talk about changing color, and we will also talk about how to add variety to your patterns, like how to change a pattern. So like if we wanted to change this up to do something else, I can show you how to do that. If there are no other questions, then that is it for today. Of course, I will have my meditation stream tonight, which is at 9 p.m. Pacific time. But my next art stream will be drawing this Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific. So I look forward to you then. You're very welcome, and thank you for joining me, Crixano, and thank you everyone else for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful week.